So Michelle, were you able to read the Deloitte article?
I skimmed through it, and it looked like the emphasis is particularly on wellness and integration into wellness into the health care of its employees. So really thinking about the holistic approach to managing employees and not really balancing, but more around integration.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And it kind of is in alignment with what you, that's what he said, it's in alignment with what you do. I wanted to share the last forum we had three executives on it, and we talked a little bit about not just the future of work, but also we talked about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I mentioned that I was going to a conference and I was going to talk about some of the insights from that conference, which is all about people and how do you get your teams operating in an optimal way. Actually, it was called Optima. That was the conference. And so I did create oh, there he is. Hello, Ron.
Ooh, how you doing?
Good. I did create just some insights on that I wanted to share. But before I do that, I want everybody to introduce themselves and see if anyone else will pop on during the session. But Michelle, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself. This time it's on record.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I've really been looking forward to it. And I am the VP of Strategic Partnerships at Forcura. This company is headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida. And we are a healthcare technology company focused on care coordination platform solutions. And so we are really focused on partnering with other like-minded organizations to bring more efficiency, optimize revenue, and improve healthcare for our clients. And a lot of those clients are in the post-acute healthcare space, like skilled nursing facilities, home health, hospice organizations, and other types of clinical providers. And what we're really hoping to do is make their lives easier from an administrative efficiency perspective so that they can focus more of their time on clinical care. We can help them get their patients onboarded sooner and get the care started sooner by making the administrative tasks simpler and smoother and more coordinated.
Excellent. So, Ron, you have the floor, and then I'll introduce myself.
Thanks, Alicia, and great to meet you, Michelle. Ron Harvey, in Columbia, South Carolina. My wife and I own a leadership development firm, and we spend the majority of our time working with organizations on creating a winning culture through building trust, reducing silos, and building team collaboration. And we do a lot of executive coaching, a lot of leadership development, team development within organizations at the executive level. We do a lot of retreats for boards, nonprofits, just to really bring their team together and function at a high capacity. So everything about us is about the culture of the organization, but we do it through the lens of about 20 different programs that we offer, to we call them partners, that we offer to our partners once we start working with them.
Excellent. And well, my name is Alicia Couri, and I have a boutique firm, and what we do is similar to Ron, but we focus on team building and leadership development as well, especially around how do you do what you do? Like, how are you wired? How are you put together to execute on the tasks? So we look very granularly at what your day-to-day operations look like and see if you are really wired to doing what you're doing, and if there is a better way to construct your role so that you have more success in what you're doing. And we do that individually as well as around teams. So we focus on when you're hiring, how do you hire the right person that will fit into the team? So hiring, onboarding, team development, and building leaders at every level. So even if you're not in a quote unquote leadership role, how are you executing day to day as a leader in the task that you have, that you are responsible for? Because we want everyone to take 100% ownership of their role and not kind of, well, I'm waiting for this one away, like be proactive, be audaciously proactive in the role that you're in. So I am going to just pull up my PowerPoint and share a couple insights, and hopefully this helps, because the topic for today is really about looking at the future of work and how are we using the digital mediums, the things that are available for us to, like how are we integrating those things into work to make the humans that have to work, make their work, much like you're saying, Michelle, make your work more efficient, more effective. And it's not about replacing humans with technology, but rather making technology work for us in a more holistic way, so that we are focused on what our superpowers are, what we can really shine in, and not the mundane, not having to do all those mundane administrative things, to allow you to really grow and blossom in your role. So during the Optima conference, the keynote speaker, and that's really who I'm going to focus on right now, is the keynote speaker was Dara Trezider. She is the SVP of Global Marketing and Communications for Peloton. She was born in Nigeria, grew up in Nigeria. Her dream was to go to Harvard, and she accomplished that dream to go to Harvard. And she was in the financial world. She with Goldman Sachs, and then transitioned into other leadership roles in different companies, and landed at Peloton as the SVP for global marketing and communication. And her story was really fascinating. And she gave a few tips on how she was able to step in and create the culture, like you were saying, Ron, this really inclusive but high performing culture over in Peloton. And I wanted to share some of that, and maybe we can have a little bit of discussion around it. So I'm going to share this screen and pull up this PowerPoint that I have. See if it'll start. There we go. And so that's Dara. So one of her driving forces is she's always had ambition, but with contentment. She got that from her parents. And this is just some of her bio. She worked for 3D printing. She was chief marketing officer at 3D printing company. She really was in the financial industry until someone said she was really good at marketing, and she didn't even realize that she was good at marketing. Sometimes we have these hidden talents that we're unaware of. And that is always in an organization. There are people with hidden talents that, because it's not their job, they're either not recognized for it, or they don't use it effectively in that position because it's not the position they were hired into. And I thought that was very, very insightful, because it was one of the vice presidents at Goldman Sachs that recognized, she said, I didn't know he knew me from anybody, but recognized that she had this talent for putting events together and marketing the events, even though she was a financial analyst. She was there hired to do, she was on the financial side. And he recognized that talent in her and encouraged her to use it more often. And that's when she started spreading her wings, because she said, everything around me was financial. I went to school for financial. I never even considered marketing. And that was something that she talked about, recognizing hidden, untapped talent in other people, to grow those things in them, because that's what happened with her. So these are some of the insights that she had. Her parents always told her to seek impact, not glory. So she always worked hard and was always looking for how she could make a difference, but never really looking for the limelight or for the accolades. So these were her tips for when she stepped into Peloton, how she was able to look at the culture, look at the teams, and then create really effective teams within Peloton. And it's some of the stuff they were already doing, and it's probably some things that you do as well. But I wanted to share that. So these are the things she talked about. When she got there, she started to get to know everybody and build relationships with everybody. A lot of times you come in as a leader and just want to lead, and nobody really knows who you are or anything. So she said from the ground up, she was building relationships. She had honest conversations with people. She looked to see if the right person was in the right role at the right time, which is how she made the transition. She made sure that people had the freedom to voice contrary opinions. If they disagreed with someone, had the freedom as the leader to come to her and say what they didn't agree with, and listen to them. Understanding career goals of their direct reports, knowing each person's superpowers, also knowing what each person is not great at, because then you can have them do more of what they're really great at and find ways to fill that space that they're not so good at. She talked about teams being an orchestra, and each person needs to understand the instrument that they have to play, and get really good at playing that instrument, and create internal mobility for people so that they knew there was space to grow, to bring in outside perspectives, to bring in consultants when when they needed to, and also to look for key pivotal people that can help execute on crucial initiatives. The reason she said she joined Peloton, because she saw that they were committed to diversity. They weren't just giving it lip service, but they were really, really committed. And the last forum that we had, we talked a little bit about diversity, especially down here in South Florida. I know both of you aren't in South Florida, but there's a lot of talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but there isn't always a lot of action. And she said that they were committed. They made a like a moratorium that in their leadership, they will have women, they'll have ethnicities, they said they are making sure that their clients reflect their business. So from the top down, it has to match, which I thought was very interesting, because they said, we're not going out just trying to get minority clients, and we have nobody representing them at the top. So they made a commitment to having their community look like the community they serve. And she did say, just a couple other things that she talked about. She said, grow where you're planted, or, sorry, you either grow where you're planted. Sorry, I just saw the thing pop up. And sometimes you need to go in order to grow, and you have to know what the difference is. So sometimes your people need to go in order to grow, and sometimes they can grow where they're planted. And individually, we need to create our own board of directors so that we can continue to grow. And we have to, as women and as minorities, this was interesting. She was saying that we need to stop carrying around our bag of receipts to prove that we belong somewhere. You know, that sometimes minorities have this chip on their shoulder, or they have this this idea that they need to prove that they belong here, so they carry on this bag of receipts. I had never heard that statement before. You know, I was like, I belong. Look, really. So
I like that.
that nobody ever asks a white male, you know, how did you get here? You know, what did you do to get in this position? So women and minorities have to step into leadership roles without this having to prove that, yes, I went to Harvard and I did this and I led this and I did all this, so I do belong. And I thought that was really interesting. So
Indeed.
now the floor is open for any if you want to discuss anything, let's talk about it.
Yeah, thanks for reviewing that. I mean, I thought that was an amazing couple of lists. I mean, it reflected a high intellect, but also a lot of empathy on her part.
Yeah.
And just her kind of deep understanding of what we as human beings need. And so I think some of it was very pragmatic, like, you know, this is practical advice for team motivation, if you will. And then, but a lot of it was just, you know, at the human level. And I think sometimes that's what we forget. You know, we always try to do the right thing. But I think a lot of times it just, you know, it comes down to feeling respected and wanted. And like you do belong and that you are appreciated. And I do think one of the biggest tragedies in terms of career is being in kind of a position where you're not really able to demonstrate the skills that you have. And that's happened to all of us at one time or another, or most of us, where we've been in a position where we couldn't really exhibit our true strengths. And we couldn't maneuver out of that and get to a place where we could really shine. And so I think it's great that she highlights that. And it's a good reminder that we do need to really get to know people, because I do believe everyone on a team has very important contributions to make, that everyone has talents. And those need to be brought out and encouraged and reinforced. And of course, the individual has to have the self-motivation on their end. But I do believe as leaders and managers, we need to really encourage people and let them know that we do want them to shine and we appreciate their contributions every day.
Thank you for that, Michelle. You're absolutely right that she did display a lot of emotional intelligence, a lot of empathy for other people. And sometimes as driven leaders, that piece can sometimes be missing, because they're like, let's get the job done, get it done, without really taking the time to understand the people that they have working with them to help them get it done. So yeah, that's really good. Ron, was there anything that kind of stood out from what she discussed that I shared to you?
Michelle was spot on, and even with the information that that was shared, the part about being an orchestra is huge, because it really is like that. The music doesn't sound good if one instrument is off. I mean, it can just be one instrument that changes the whole sound, and I think oftentimes we don't understand that about our organizations, that it really takes one person to really not be in sync or not in the right position, or don't feel valued or appreciated. I always say there, for organizations, you can tell if you're being tolerated or being appreciated. And it's real easy. And all of us have probably been in that position where we knew they were just tolerating us, or we were just tolerating them, and we were looking for the next opportunity or the exit strategy. And so it's like being in an orchestra. Is in the work of a leader for me. And I know what you said, Alicia, where we're so busy trying to get the results. But for a leader, I think getting the results is it's what the people focus on. I truly believe that the leader's work is the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the bottom line. It's not putting a basketball in the goal or kicking a soccer ball down the field or throwing the football. I mean, a head coach on any sport doesn't go in the game.
Right.
Ever. I mean, it's a penalty. You get penalized for going into the game.
So just stepping on the field. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Just for stepping on the field, you get in
Just for
trouble.
stepping on the field, you get.
Yeah.
No,
So I think her insight is huge. I think where the disconnect is for leaders today is the ability to listen, like completely listen, which means shut down their inner thoughts, stop whatever they're saying and stop what they're thinking and really hear the conversation. I think most leaders are working off of 2G and the workforce has shifted to 5G.
5G, right? Great analogy.
Yeah.
So as we're looking at the future, so Ron, you work in leadership development, you work in team development. So looking to the future, what are some of the things or trends that you see that are happening now that we should be, or leaders should pay attention to?
For us in organizations, the level of trust in organizations is dropping drastically. And that's across every industry that we get an opportunity to work in. So whether I'm talking about, a religious organization or a government organization, it's just that the level across our society has dropped. The level of trust has dropped drastically. And so for leaders to be able to gain that trust back, I think that's something that's huge. I've seen with the younger workforce, they want to be a part of an organization that appreciates what they bring to the table and allows them to do it in an unorthodox way.
Mm-hmm. That is so true.
So it's not the way that my grandparents would have done it. They got a job, they were going to stay there for 40 years, regardless whether they got promoted or not. They didn't share their opinion. They just did their little thing in their little space. And they did that every day for 5 days a week, for 8 hours a day. And they never questioned any of that. And the workforce and the people that are coming to the workforce now are brilliant. And so how do we,
they're bolder
as leaders? Yeah, they're bolder.
They're much bolder, and
yes.
They question authority. They challenge everything.
Yeah. I'm curious. I think for organizations to create the space, like she said, for Peloton, how do you create the space for them to be contrary? Because that's how you grow. I mean, someone that challenges you to be able to do it the way that you haven't done it in years, or never even thought about doing it. I think you got to create space for people not to just be, go against the wind or against the grain just for the heck of it. I don't think that's healthy at all.
No.
But I think it is healthy to have someone that says, hey, I think there's a better way, a more creative way, a more effective way, a cost-saving way. And to hear that from someone that's junior in your organization that has no stock, they're not at the table of, they're not a stakeholder. They're just a person that's getting the work done. Across the board, what we see in organizations is organizations are struggling how to let people work remotely now. I don't think it's ever going to go back to this big, beautiful building that's 13 floors high and the executives on the top floor. And it's just not going to be reality for us. And people want to work from home. They don't want to do work-life balance anymore. They want to do work-life integration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And having this experience with remote work, they know that it can be done now. So it's like, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. It's like, we know you can do it, company, Mr. Company. We know it can be done. So let's figure out a way. And that's kind of the future of work too. It's like, we're going to be in this hybrid world now. It's not, like you're saying, Ron, I don't believe it either, that it's ever going to go back to 100% workforce on site all the time. They're going to have to pivot and accommodate those who do want to stay home and work remotely. What do you think about that, Michelle?
I think that's a huge question. And, I do I do believe we have to kind of cut some slack amongst all of us in the work environment, because this is all new, right? And I think that the vast majority of companies and people are trying their best to do the right thing. I do believe that for the most part that is true, but it really is uncharted territory for the most part, right? And I do think that it's going to be somewhere in between. And I agree with you. I think that absolutely we've learned that, remote work is real and it can work. I do think, that there has to be some analysis of roles, what roles are better suited than others. And, there might be certain, and there might be some mix that ends up being maybe the best answer. But I think I agree with you that, we have shown that it can be done and it can be done effectively. I think just more analysis over time is going to be needed before some companies are ready to proclaim kind of the model, the standard model, if you will. But absolutely. I also think that regarding your earlier comments, technology, of course, is becoming such a huge part of all of our lives at home and at work. And I think that companies are going to need to spend a lot more time on training and education, because technology is so rapidly changing, and the degree to which someone engages in technology varies a great deal personally, but at work, there's going to be a standard. So I think we need to be committed to training and making sure employees feel comfortable, and making sure that we're not isolating maybe certain groups, like certain older folks even, who may not have as much experience hands-on with technology, and that we're making sure we're not, putting them on the sidelines at all, that we're really encouraging them and helping them with technology that they may or may not be familiar with. And that's, of course, a general statement. That's not true, at the individual level. But I do think that we need to make sure that we're looking across all aspects of the employee workforce and offering enough training and education, and also so that people feel secure in their positions and understand that technology is there as a help to improve efficiency at work. And it frees them up to do maybe other things in their job that's more meaningful, and maybe even gives them more time for what I call creative thinking, and so that it's not all manual work, and some of the improvements like that can come with advanced technology.
It's absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I do want to hear your insight on something, because there was a Gartner article a couple of weeks ago about remote work and how it's going to increase the pay gap, the gender pay gap, as more women might opt to stay home and work from home. And there's this conversation that, well, if you're not coming into the office, then why should I pay you the same as someone who is coming into the office? So that's the next brouhaha.
Yeah. It sounds just to me like another slant on the same story, right?
Yep.
I mean, we can marginalize or kind of categorize people for some reason or another at any given time, right? And so I think it at the end of the day, it needs to come down to someone's performance and how they're meeting the goals and objectives that you've set for them. And again, there's going to be variation on how much latitude we give certain people based on their role. But I think we have to be really committed to focusing on the work and meeting the objectives and relating to people. I loved it today. I was in a Zoom meeting and there was a male colleague on there with a baby on his shoulder. And I thought, that is so awesome. And, this would 25 years ago, you would have never seen that.
That is remarkable. And not just that he had the baby, but that everybody gave the grace for him to be able to do that. Yep. That things are, because of the current state of work with the remote working, everybody has, even Ron just said, I have bad weather, I might drop off. Like, people are having more grace with technology, with kids coming in the room, with, all kinds of distractions and interruptions that normally if you were at work and you got a personal phone call, it would be like, you don't take personal phone calls at work. But now, there's so much more latitude because we're all collectively experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's about authentic. Go ahead. You go right ahead.
I think the conversation 25 years ago, a female would not have made this statement, and now we have the courage because we know people are going to support it more now. So like the statement of that a woman should be paid less because she's working from home. Well, I don't pay less for a meal because I eat in the restaurant or they deliver it to my home. It's still the same amount for the meal. And so I think I'm right on point with Michelle is that, and you may pay more because of delivery. Yeah. But the reality is I'm on point with Michelle. Let's measure performance. Let's not slant this in a different skew just to discriminate for a reason that makes you feel like you're better. So I'm 100% against that. If you could work from home and still deliver the results, that's what matters to us. Amazon, I mean, those people are working, they're never in an office. They're in that little blue truck and that's their office. Well, if your office is your home office, if you can do the results, I think that's where we're starting to challenge the status quo. Even executive presence has been challenged now. Yes. Before executive presence was, you got to be clean cut, you got to be in a tie, you got to be in a suit. And for the African-American community, that was a struggle because they could never fit that presence of what they thought corporate America should look like for me as an African-American. So we would change our hairstyle, we change how we dress, we change how we sit. We're naturally, I could come across aggressive and they would attribute that to hostile. That whole thing has changed because executive presence for me was built off of predominantly the white male. Right. And everybody had to fit that mold. We're challenging all of that stuff now. Yeah. So I think as we look at corporate companies, what's not just what the white male did, but females, Hispanic males, white, lesbian, gay, Black people, anything, all of that fits into the workplace. And how do we do that effectively? Because we're being challenged on all of those fronts now, and we should be.
Yep, absolutely. What about the statement about Peloton wanting to have the same, representation in their boardroom? Every executive position needs to represent their clientele. So how they're doing that? Because not every some businesses just give lip service to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really great insight. I mean, if you're going to reach your customers, then I'm not sure how any of us think we can fully offer a value proposition if we're not living in that same space. So, I mean, I think that if we are coming from the same perspective, and I mean, that broadens the discussion. It just broadens the strategy, it broadens the discussion. It brings in elements that wouldn't have been considered before. So I think that it's all about being relatable and being real life, is the way I think about it. I mean, that's real life. And how else can we bring things to market that are going to relate to people if we aren't representing that?
Exactly. And do you find that in your organization that's happening as well, that there is that push to represent everyone?
Yeah. I mean, our culture is really inclusive, and I just feel like it's very diverse, and we have a strong cultural team who is always thinking about ways to make sure we're inclusive and thinking broadly. So absolutely.
It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't just happen. You have to be very mindful of it for it to happen.
Intentional.
And you mentioned something. Now I lost it, but when I'm trying not to go down the road of diversity and inclusion too much. I'm trying to stick on the future, but Ron mentioned something earlier about how this younger generation, they're not status quo. They're not just going to fall in line like generations ahead of them. Are you seeing that as well? That it's not that they're combative. They just are so they're ready to make change, and they want to see change happening, and they want to see it happen quickly. Do you find that happening in your organization too? Do you see millennials being like that?
Yeah, I mean, and I try hard not to generalize for the most part, because I do think, I don't want to glaze over individual differences, right? So I try not to do that, but I do think, I mean, to your point, I mean, generally speaking, I think that younger folks have found their voice better than years prior. And I'm not sure the exact reasons. I think some of it could be attributed, and this is just, my thinking out loud, but maybe things like social media, where expressing ourselves is much easier than it has been before. Perhaps it's improvements just in our world where more voices are heard. Perhaps it's all of the challenges that are going on in the world today that are kind of enlivening passion within people to speak. So I'm sure it's a combination of things, but I do think, generally speaking, I can think back on myself, and I was probably didn't have the level of confidence, or I was too guarded at that age to be as vocal as some are. But I do applaud that, as long, as long as people are respectful,
right,
and considerate, and aren't just thinking of themselves, which I say that about all of us. I think it's a good move. It's good. It's an important move.
And okay, Ron is still here. He just had to come off camera.
Okay.
Talking about how open things are a little bit, my thinking was, I know Ron just, I was reading his message. My thinking about that too is the idea that they're not even looking for a long-term commitment. Like long-term for them is 5 years. Like, there is so much more available than 10, 15 years ago, opportunity-wise. So companies are starting at such a rapid rate, technology companies. And so if they feel like, anyone feels like, this place isn't really honoring me, or, I can get another job. If they are talented and they have a lot of, and they're really good at what they do, they know they can get another job. I think 20 years ago, it was less. So we're thinking like when we were in our early 20s and coming up, how different it is now than then. The opportunities weren't as broad. Like if you were in, I studied fashion. So if you were in that track, that's where you stayed. Now you can change careers so quickly and easily that people don't have to feel like I have to do my best right here, because otherwise, I have to be here for the next 15, 20 years of my life. Otherwise, I don't have any value anywhere else. These skills aren't transferable anywhere else. But now we see that skills can be transferred pretty easily these days. So that's just my 2 cents on that, on that side. Ron, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, organizations are being held accountable more of doing the right thing for their workforce now. Before, organizations, you focused on just the client or the customer being happy at all costs. And so whether I was happy as an employee or not was not important to them. Now that they understand that, like, even Chick-fil-A has to make sure they, as great as they are as an organization, or Nordstrom, if you will, they still got to do a really good job of taking care of their workforce now, because it's competitive and you don't keep me just because I'm there. And so I think for our organization, when I do interviews, I tell people I need them just as much as they need me now. So just as much as they need that job, I actually need a really good employee. And that wasn't the case before. It was almost like a one-sided conversation during the interview. And now I'm being interviewed just as much as I'm interviewing. And that has totally changed the dynamics of how we operate in organizations. And those that are not doing it that way are having a very hard time of retaining people.
Yeah, because people want to also know that there's a track for growth and development. And if you don't have that in mind, I'm just hiring you for this position, and they come asking you about what is the future for my growth here. They're going somewhere else because they want to know they have a place to grow and develop. Well, is there anything more that you want to add to the conversation? Because we're coming up to 6:41. So I'm just so thankful that you guys on a Friday evening, on a holiday weekend, decided to jump in and have this discussion, because I love to hear different points of view on things, and it helps me do my job better. It helps me as a consultant be better, but also, happy to share these insights with others as well. So if there's anything that you want to add to the discussion of future of work, please feel free.
Yeah. I would say for where we're headed, probably the most important thing, like for us across all organizations, the future of work is going to be very diverse. And we're going to have to embrace everybody in the workforce now. And a company that's not diverse, and because people, even major companies, are struggling how to make a business case for it. And I agree that it needs to be a business case, but I think it needs to be a people case, because people are doing it because it's just the right thing to do. And it's not changing their hearts or their minds. And I think that we're getting to a place where we say, yeah, it's the right thing to do, but the future of work is going to expect executives to actually really care about it, and not because of policy or they've been shamed into it. So I think across the board, the future of work will not look like it's ever looked before. I think the new generation is going to turn it upside down. Women are going to really be in organizations and leading and challenging things. You're going to see, because right now, before, a woman would take, time away when there was a kid, but now men can take time. You're going to see so much of a difference of how we really integrate versus balance, because I don't want to spend 40 hours in the office ever again.
Right.
Ever.
And then
I don't want to do vacation and enjoy my time. And I want to take the phone call. And I want, if my kid is sick, I'm not being marginalized because I took a sick day to go. We have an agency that we're working with, a major agency. And they force everyone back into the office. I mean, literally just say, hey, the governor put an order out. Everybody's coming back in. It's a state agency. And the people, if they had childcare problems, they have to take a sick day. Unpaid sick day. So they're taking time off, and I get it. That the future of work is going to be just like that. How do you accommodate these individuals that can do their job from home, and they really could, but because of leadership, they've mandated that everybody comes to the office, and there are people that are struggling with childcare because we haven't completely opened back up yet. And I'm coaching these are executive leaders. They're debating whether they keep the job or keep their family, and no one should be put in that position.
People should not have to be put in that position at all. Yeah. And two things you said that I want to push back on just a little bit, because, having to build a business case for why minorities need to be in executive roles is so ridiculous, because no business case was made as why white men need to be in those roles. So why should their business case be made for a woman to be in that role, a Latina, a Native American? Why does there need to be a business case for someone who is qualified to be in that role? So that's one thing. And then the second thing, when we're talking about, having to take a sick day to take care of your family, we have to not just look at, well, women are taking time off to be home because a kid is sick, or, we have same-sex couples that have children as well. So if it's two men and one of them have to take off, why should anybody have to be marginalized because they have to take care of their child. The child cannot take care of themselves, you know, as a child. So those accommodations have to be made. Absolutely. You're right on target with that. So Michelle, floor is yours.
No, great conversation. I just can't think of a more relevant time ever to have the conversation. I mean, never has the workforce been so shaken up, right, as it has been in this last year. So I mean, it's kind of chaotic in some ways. So it's a huge challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity to demonstrate as executives and as leaders, to demonstrate that, hey, we really value you, right, as employees, and we, help us out. Let's talk this through. Let's come up with solutions together as a team. And what we might find is that going through this, our teams, come together stronger because we have more empathy. We have a broader view of what balance or integration looks like. So we might just come out of this thing stronger, right?
Yes,
by having gone through
definitely.
It together. So,
I think so. I think for sure. The
having a
strong
good
will survive.
conversation.
So I have one final question really quickly. What does a proactive team member look like to you? If someone was being proactive, what does that look like?
Me?
Yes, Michelle. Sorry, Michelle.
Yeah. Well, proactive to me has a lot to do with positivity and willingness to kind of step out there and take some risks. And when I say risk, I mean pushing ourselves to be courageous, right? And again, you can't really do that until you have a healthy confidence level. And so it's kind of circular, right?
Yeah.
so managers need to make sure that they are making it comfortable, the environment's comfortable, and that they're supporting someone so they have the confidence, right? But if I see it as someone who is confident enough to raise their hand and say, I'll do it, I'll volunteer for that. So it's kind of, you got to have some self-motivation. You have to be courageous. It's, willingness to put the work in, right? And it's being a good team member and being courteous to teammates. So that to me is and someone who's always trying to learn and helping others around them learn, right? Learning is till the day we're gone. I mean, to me, we always need to be learning.
Always learning.
Somebody who's always doing that, and not just kind of like, just getting through the day, really, really showing an effort.
Punching their time clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Ron, what does that mean to you? If someone who's an audaciously proactive team member, what just a proactive team member?
Someone that's really committed to the bigger picture. That doesn't come with the mindset of, what's in it for them all the time. Asking questions of what else can we do? How do they become so great within an organization so the organization can get better? So someone that's looking for ways to always grow and to better their skill set and their level of competence and confidence so that they can actually help the organization grow, because it doesn't grow without people growing. I mean, an organization want to grow, but it has to start with the people. So someone that's always seeking ways to grow, someone that's being mentored or looking for a mentor, someone that's asking for a coach. Anytime someone's on our team that's asking for ways to get better, I lean in favor of that all the time. And so proactive for me is, how do you get better? And I think that's in all aspects of our life. I do ask, how do I be a better husband? How do I be a better father? How do I be a better supervisor? How do we be better? Because I think we should always strive to be, not even compete against each other. We should be better than we were yesterday.
Yeah.
And so proactive to me means, what is it that what's my intentional growth plan? And so if I ask someone, hey, what's your intentional growth plan? And they stumble over that, then I want to engage them in that conversation, because I think that's what proactive is, that you're being intentional about your own growth.
I love that.
Great. That's great.
Well, thank you everyone for joining me today. This has been really great. And I'm sure those who couldn't make it tonight will enjoy the conversation as well, because they did ask me for if they can get the recording of this so they can listen in. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have the best holiday weekend ever.
You too.
Yes, Monday's my birthday, so I'm going to
Happy birthday.
enjoy that. Thank you. All right. Well, take care. And next month, probably the end of the next month, I'll have another forum and pick another topic that is relevant for today and what leaders are looking for. And I will invite you again to join us. So thank you. And hopefully we'll get a bigger turnout because it won't be a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
Take
nice
care,
spending
everybody.
time with you both.
Pleasure
Thank you
meeting
so
you.
much. And it was great meeting you, Michelle.